I'll add to that, the New York Times on its editorial page today calling for the Clintons to cut ties with the Clinton Foundation. Here's an excerpt of that editorial. Achieving true distance from the foundation is not only necessary to ensure its effectiveness, it is an ethical imperative for Mrs. Clinton. That from the New York Times editorial board. Former South Carolina GOP Chairman Van Hipp joins us now, as does Clinton Inc. author Daniel Halper and Bustle Politics editor Emily Shire. Van, let me begin with you on all of what Blake went through, the latest on the foundation and the relationship with the Clintons, in particular Mrs. Clinton. What's the damage?
Well, it all goes to her credibility problem. And, you know, a Fox News poll recently showed that over 66% of the American people found her untrustworthy. And at some point, I believe you're going to reach a tipping point, death by a thousand cuts, at some point where the American people take a deep breath, step back, and ask themselves, are we going to elect this person, this woman, to be our president? Okay. That's the real danger for Hillary Clinton. That's
the question, though. You bring up an interesting phrase there in the use of the word tipping, or the phrase tipping point. Emily, I don't know that we've reached it yet, and I'm not sure what the reason for that is. I mean, Hillary Clinton has been, I think it's fair to say, damaged somewhat by all of this. The Real Clear Politics average of the polls since she had her peak is down by 3 points, but she still is ahead in the race. Do you think at some point we get to the point where there is a tipping, as was just alluded to by Van?
You know, I'm not sure there is, because untrustworthiness is kind of built into the Clinton cake. And she's been doing really well despite the fact that she is considered one of the most untrustworthy candidates. A Washington Post ABC News poll found earlier this month only 38% of Americans found her to be trustworthy, but the problem is only 36% of Americans find Donald Trump to be trustworthy. You know, it goes back to that if she was against a McCain or Romney, yeah, these could maybe derail her campaign, but she's not.
Right. Well, that's the thing. You have a race here where you have two candidates that some have said, you know, Daniel may be perfect for each other, that, you know, one couldn't beat the other couldn't beat the one they're running against unless it was the matchup that we have today. Do you think there's anything to that? And if so, what will all this mean for the race? If there is no point where we get to a stage where you just can't get over all this with Hillary Clinton?
Well, it's certainly true that they're both fortunate in who they face because they both have bad negatives, as we've discussed, but I do think that Donald Trump is in a unique position coming from the outside of government, where he has railed against government corruption, and he has said he and other people have given donations to buy access and to buy certain things. And
but is there anything, Daniel, in here that you say, boy, it's more than just access? It's one thing that maybe Trump should focus on and say, here's my example. This is why you know, you shouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton.
Well, I do think he should pick an example because it just helps to illustrate it, because there are just so many emails. I mean, every single day we're getting more and more emails.
So what's the most egregious one for you? What would you say?
I don't know about, it is hard to isolate that, which is, of course, I think the problem that he's having. But I think just you pick a businessman who has gotten access, the UBS, you know, for instance, where they clearly got some help from Hillary Clinton in their case with the IRS. He has talked about it a little bit in the past, but I think there's a lot of examples, and there's this huge tangled web that I think is beginning to unfold. The real issue is that we'll never end up seeing everything that went on between the State Department and the Clinton Foundation. There's just so much there.
There's a lot there. Do you see anything, Van, that is, in your view, pay to play, more than just, you know, donor gets access, actual pay to play? And if so, what is it?
I just think the straight access. I mean, I think access is, look, people go to Washington, companies come to here all the time. They buy access through firms, through high-priced lobbying firms. It's not usual for people to buy them through nonprofits and through charities.
Fair enough.
And I think that's what we're seeing.
What do you see? Anything that's pay to play, in your view? That we went through, Blake went through a lot. We've talked about a few examples.
Yep. Some of this stuff is almost comical if it weren't so sad when you read through it. And what I find is very interesting, her own campaign manager says that, yeah, we're not going to get over this trustworthy problem until after the election. You've got to vote for her and elect her first, and then she's going to show you that she's trustworthy. That kind of reminds me of what Nancy Pelosi said about Obamacare. We got to pass it first to find out what's in it. I don't think the American people are going to make that same mistake twice.
But we don't have an example that's something you pay and you get access, and a concrete example.
Look at $32 million from the Crown Prince of Bahrain.
The Bahrain story to you.
That's pretty disturbing.
The Bahrain, the UBS example that Daniel gave, that's two. So maybe those are examples Trump could hit on. What do you say, Emily?
I mean, I think the problem with that is that this is complicated, shady, nuanced issues, and the fact of the matter is that Trump has done a number of glaring and easily digestible bad things. You know, inviting Russia to hack her emails, suggesting that Second Amendment supporters should assassinate Hillary Clinton. These are glaring problems that are frankly just much easier for American voters to digest than going into nuanced, shady allegations. And I think that's really problematic for Trump.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the concern maybe is that there's fatigue in all these things, that we do talk about them. I know there was criticism, Daniel, the media for a while, of not giving it enough attention. It is getting attention now, but does it get to a point where people, it's not registering with people for whatever reason, even if it may be something that should? I mean, the New York Times, for example, especially the editorial page, that's an ally of Hillary Clinton, but that was a fairly scathing editorial given where it came from today, didn't you think?
Yeah, look, if you could support Hillary Clinton up to this point, it's not as though today's emails and today's editorial are going to shift your mind. I agree with that. However, if somebody made the concrete case, this person, these people are corrupt, that there's corruption, that buying access is not something that should be acceptable in government, I think a clean, good governance agenda could have some resonance. Okay, and again, to be clear, it is having some effect. The polls have come back a little bit. Just a question if it will have enough of an effect from Donald Trump's perspective. Thanks to all three of you. Good discussion to start us off today.